Hey, what's going on, everybody? Doki the Dingus, aka Wagon Fruit here, and welcome back to Doki the Uncut. This time, you've caught me just as I'm about to go to sleep, but I figured that I would record this because this is the first time I've been genuinely happy with an OU team that I've made since Chi Yu was legal, which is a long-ass time. I am not really typically a very good OU builder, but I've created something that I think actually has merit as a team style, and it's actually kind of cool. I'm really not very good, but the one thing that really catches my eye with OU lately is the fact that Garchomp dropped down to UU and then instantly popped up to UEBL. This Mon Garchomp is very good. I think it's been a little bit undervalued, and I think the reason for that is because the same month that it dropped down to UU and now has popped up to UEBL is the same month that Baxcalibur was legal with Scale Shot and was banned. I think the only genuine merit that Garchomp has over something like another ground like Great Tusk or Gliscor is not the fact that it has a decent speed tier, it has offensive pressure with setting hazards. I think if you want a hazard setting ground, you should really pick Gliscor. If you want one that spins and one that just is general fat for your team, you should pick Great Tusk. Garchomp is not on that level. Garchomp, at least in OU, for me, is not on that level, and I think a lot of people agree with that. That's why it dropped down. But what I do think is that Garchomp has genuine viability in this metagame. And my reasoning for that is the fact that everyone kind of forgot that this thing is one of the scariest SD scale shot Pokemon I've ever seen. And now that loaded dice is an actual thing, this Pokemon is a fucking menace. I don't know if you guys remember, but in Gen 8, this was like one of the staples of like aggro teams and terrain offense teams, because like Coco terrain offense teams, you know, like Coco, Luchik, Chomp was like the big three of like Coco terrain teams. This thing was a real threat with SD scale shot, and it was like the best ground type option for that kind of team. And now it gets loaded dice. Like this thing is really good, and as a draft player playing from Gen 8, this thing is a total fucking it's a crazy ass mon. This thing is incredible, and it getting scale shot back is like an incredible buff. And people just haven't been using it like that for some reason, at least from what I've seen, right? So I decided, let's try to pop this on webs. Now this team was like I had the idea to make this team because I really wanted to make Garchomp work in OU after seeing that. And this is just built around Garchomp, but you might see third down in my Pokemon list, there's a very interesting selection. And that's kind of why I wanted to show this team off. That Mon being Espeon. And there is a reason for it, and I'll get down to why I've selected Espeon over any other possible Pokemon in that slot. But before I do that, I just want to remind you to please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Sometimes I make some heat builds, and other times I also win with them. But this isn't one of those times. I'm not going to be really playing because I really want to go to sleep after I make this. This is just kind of a chill little breakdown. Anyway, also shout out to my boy Joey Jokestar for helping me team test this, even though it hasn't really been tested very thoroughly. It's a pretty cool team, and both Joey and I have been getting decent win rates with it. Being like around 1,500 on the ladder, Joey being around like 1,400. We're not like crazy good, obviously, but we're decent at the game. So from what I know, this is like a pretty decent, viable-ish team, which is pretty cool because it has an Espeon on it. Anyways, also, by the way, my recent videos of the JJDL live comms have been super fun to make, and if you are from the JJDL and happen to stumble upon this video, if you ever want me to live comm your games, please feel free to ping me at any moment. It does not bother me, and I would every time I get excited to commentate one of those. It's very fun for me. Anyway, on to this team. Obviously, we have the leader Bombi. It's just very, 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 very standard. Really not much to talk about. Terra Ghost, very standard, like possible spin blocking while I set the web if I really need it. And then the only real cool thing that I think is there about this Rabombi is Thief. I don't really know what people use in this last move slot, but I've tended to like Thief for the times where my sash breaks, and I can get a little fuck you off against like the steel type with leftovers or something like that. Generally, thiefing, like maybe even a choice scarf trick like Goldengo might even be very helpful versus like a late game gambit. It wants to like trick the scarf onto me and like nullify me. I think that's like a genuine thing that this can prevent, which is pretty cool. I mean, I haven't really theory crafted it that much, but I've actually been clicking Thief, which is pretty cool. Of course, it's not useful at all if your sash doesn't break, but I mean, if your sash isn't breaking and you're like getting actual moves off with Rabombi, I think you're getting the value out of it anyway. So it's really not a move slot that I think you need too much. Like, you could be U-turn. I really don't know what people run. I've seen switcheroo, but that literally makes no sense when you could just run Thief. Like, giving them a focus sash is not helpful. You know, like it doesn't cripple them at all. I would like to cripple them. I mean, it kind of cripples them if it's not a useful focus sash. But Thief is cooler. You know, Thief is a cool move. It also does a little tiny bit of chip, so it's a cool move. I don't think other people have been doing this, but I think it's a pretty cool selection on Rabombi as like a last slot option, with the focus sash being removed after you use it. So that's pretty cool. And then the star of the show is Chomp. We have Swords Dance, Scale Shot, EQ, and Stealth Rock is a very interchangeable slot. Right now, my team has Stealth Rock on it because I like being able to play a slower game, or maybe not a slower game, but like a game that relies on like pressure over a long period of time versus slower teams. And Stealth Rock helps that. Like if I'm fighting something like a Dondozo team that I really need to like decisively and like precisely play around. I would like to have those rocks to be able to force stuff. I haven't really been clicking this last move slot other than the times where I've had rocks on the set. I've had Stone Edge on the set sometimes. I've had Substitute on the set. Haven't clicked that. And I've also even had Terra Blast Fire, which is probably not a great idea. I think I've seen a Blunder video where he had this very similar or exactly the same Garchomp, but instead of Terra Blast Fire, he had Fire Fang, which seems normal to me. I don't really like having to rely on Fire Fang on Garchomp, so I just haven't even thought about doing that. I think Fire Fang's a fucking garbage move, so I'm just never gonna run it. It's really Terra Fire or bust for me. Terra Fire, Terra Blast, Stone Edge or bust for me. I don't think I'm ever gonna run Fire Fang. That move is really bad. So yeah, star of the show is Rabombi and Chomp. Now we get to our third selection, which is Espeon. And you can see the set here. But essentially, you're probably asking, why the fuck are you using Espeon and OU? Why would you ever use Espeon over any of these other wonderful options that you can pick from to fill the role that Espeon has? That's because there's no other Pokemon that does it. And here's the reason for Espeon. When you run Garchomp, you're basically saying, I am validly using Garchomp over any of the other ground type options. Which means I don't really want to fit Tusk on this team. Tusk being on the team, on like a Webs team, is basically like it's so common. Like Rabombi, Tusk, and Goldengo should basically always be on a Webs team, at least from what I know about the tier. Having a good hazard control option on webs seems really important, especially when you can fight opposing webs. Like, that seems kind of really important. So my way around not having to run Tusk is Espeon. All of the other spinners are garbage in a webs team, and all of the defoggers are also garbage in a webs team. The only real good removal that you can run with webs is Great Tusk. So if I'm running Garchomp, the best option is Espeon. Because Magic Bounce is a genuinely very, very useful ability for webs, at least from my experience. And Espeon is the best one that can take advantage of webs because it has a really good speed tier. And as well as that, it is also a very good user of Terra. So if I'm not like fiending to use Terra on something like my King Gambit or my Garchomp, which is Terra Steel, by the way, I forgot to mention. Good for giving me setup turns. But this thing actually has killed like an entire local population of King Gambits on my journey laddering with this team, which is very funny. There's like one of every 2 games, a King Gambit gets sent in on my Espeon and just fully sacked, and it's so funny. I am Terra fighting. You could give me a good reason for Terra Fairy. Terra Fairy is like, when you see Espeon, you're like, okay, this thing is Terra Fairy, right? But this team, in its current state, is a bit weak to Gambit without it being Terra fighting Espeon. Because in reality, you need like 3 combines for a Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam to one-shot King Gambit. And a King Gambit at low health is still there. Like, that mon is still a threat to your team, which is insane to say, but being base 50, but that thing is still fucking crazy. So having Terra fighting has been very helpful for me. I haven't... Honestly, like, I Terra Espeon probably more than any other Pokemon on this team. And I'm never unhappy to do it, which is crazy, because it's an Espeon. It's an RU Pokemon, but I genuinely feel like it is serving its purpose better than like 3 other Mons on this team. I think it's like the 3rd best Pokemon in practice, which is fucking insane. So I actually am really happy with how this thing is performing. I have this EV spread because, like, before it was max special attack, like, whatever, who cares? I don't know how to EV for OU, but one thing I did notice was the Glide, or at least while building, I actually haven't had an issue with this, but the Gliscor matchup looked very, very iffy on paper. In practice, I haven't had an issue with Gliscor. I've just been killing it with one of Espeon or a boosted Garchomp, and it's just been fine. Like, I really haven't had an issue with it, and it's probably because of this EV spread, but basically 8 HP and 220 defense is the minimum amount of investment that I can run while not getting 2-shot by Gliscor's EQ. And that makes it so with leftovers, I can safely go for a Calm Mind and go for a Psychic 2-shot. And that is really huge when Gliscor is mainly there to just set spikes. And everyone forgets about Magic Bounce, and it's so funny. I just get free spikes, and I'm not even fucking running spikes. It's really funny. It happens like in 20% of games. Like, I fight a Gliscor, Gliscor gets sent out, I switch to Espeon, I get a spike up for myself, and when their turn is totally wasted. It's so funny. And Espeon, this Espeon with a Calm Mind up, honestly very hard to stop for the OU tier, at least from my experience, right? Everything is just from my personal experience playing against this tier for the past couple days. I don't have that much experience, but like this team is like the majority of my real OU experience. So I think Espeon putting in this much work is really cool. Anyways, the next part of this team, when you have a webs team, the most essential part is Goldengo, because being able to stop people from removing that hazard is incredible. some people might run Specs Goldengo on webs. I have opted to run Air Balloon, and the reason is because you see my last few slots, I don't have a real Earthquake switch in, which honestly hasn't been a big problem for me with how aggressive this team is and how much progress I can make regardless. But that one-time Air Balloon has been very, very helpful for beating stuff like Great Tusk, who in webs, while yes, it can click knockoff and take out my balloon, right? And probably, honestly, even like bulkier Tusks win the 1v1 versus my Goldengo. I can chip it down to the point where every single other one of the every single other mon on my team can just kill it, and that basically makes it useless. And Goldengo has done its job. It has successfully taken out the option for them to click Rapid Spin, so it's doing its job wonderfully. Make it rain Shadow Ball and Thunderbolt. I've been kind of torn between Thunderbolt and Focus Blast right now. Obviously, Focus Blast is really good versus opposing King Gambits that want to click Sucker Punch. And also versus other steals that just happen to show up, which happens more than you'd think. But Thunderbolt has been very helpful versus rain matchups, because while you're not going to win the game by spamming Thunderbolt 6 times, obviously, it's not a resist to water. It does actually give you like a button to click all the time versus that kind of team, which is pretty cool, especially when you're balloon active. Like it's very helpful. I've seen a bunch of rain for some fucking reason. I've also seen a bit of Terra Waters, so Thunderbolt has been a very, very helpful tool. And as the last move, I actually selected Memento, and I've been clicking it. It's been very cool. I mean, this is webs, but I have a lot of different setup options on this team. So reducing a mon down to -1 speed and -2 in both offenses, it basically fucking entirely useless. And then that combined with like Magic Bounce, Calm Mind, Espeon, like you can get a ball rolling really quickly with Memento Goldengo, and it's been super helpful. Memento has been clicked several times in my short laddering experience, and I've never regretted having it on the moveset. It's pretty fucking cool. It's like the other little bit of tech, I guess, that I've introduced to this team, which is kind of awesome. Anyway, Goldengo is a pretty sacrificial Pokemon. Like, as long as it does its job of preventing the hazard removal for long enough to get my ball rolling to the point where they can't win anymore, that's Goldengo's job. If it dies in the process, that's not a problem for me. So, Memento is a pretty cool addition, I think. This Eevee spread is made by Joey Jokestar. I don't actually remember what it does. All I can tell you is that having this Eevee spread has never felt limiting to me at all, and I've been doing all my calcs with Modest. So, if that doesn't sell you on the fact that this Eevee spread is good enough, I don't know what will. And Terra Flying for after I pop my balloon, I can keep on beating those ground types if I truly need to. And I think I've clicked it one time. I don't really need to click it on Goldengo, but it's just like a little backup option, because keeping the ground resist or immunity is genuinely helpful. Anyway, second to last mon is King Gambit. This thing, obviously, an insane menace, and honestly should be banned. If this team gets rendered totally useless because King Gambit ends up getting another suspect, I would not be surprised. But right now, King Gambit is absolutely fucking broken, and in webs, it is only more broken. You get the excuse to run a max speed King Gambit, and its natural bulk will still live at anything you want it to, and it will actually outspeed most Great Tusk sets. Only the literally max speed ones. which I've not encountered very much. Outspeed Kingambit after webs, which is very huge. That is an insane quality to have. But generally, Kingambit in webs, there's not many things that actually outspeed max speed Kingambit in webs that can live the sucker punch correctly. And Kingambit can quite literally 1v6 entire teams in the right spot. I have genuinely, like, when I was first testing the team and I didn't really know how it flowed, I quite literally went down 5 mons and then still won the game because Kingambit was the last one left. This thing is no joke. I do think it's very bannable after using it. I don't deserve some of the wins that I get because this thing is on the team. But if you're running a webs team without max speed Kingambit on it, I do think you're missing out. This thing is totally fucking broken. And it's just the basic ass Terraflying set with Ironhead. There's no real reason to run anything else. You don't need it. This thing is absolutely fucking broken. And this last mon is probably the most interchangeable one, and it's Ceruledge. And I'm running Choice Banded Weak Armor. It's very interesting. I threw Ceruledge on this team for a couple of reasons. One is that I would like to have a fast, very hard-hitting button versus Corviknight. While, yes, Goldengo does beat every Corviknight, it also doesn't pressure it that hard, and I don't want to be bullied by a U-turning one. So the idea is I will use Ceruledge to beat Corviknights, and if it chooses to U-turn on me, I can be in webs with the weak armor boost, and then my attack is Choice Band boosted. And it is very, very hard to stop that if that situation happens. That's the idea behind the Ceruledge. Another thing that the Ceruledge does is it beats things like Iron Moth. It handles just other fire types like Cinderace, and it does that same interaction versus Cinderace where if it's a defensive Cinderace, the only thing you can really click on you is U-turn. Quad resisted activates weak armor, and Choice Band boosted Poltergeist is fucking impossible to switch into when webs are up. It's really cool. The thing is, this thing is interchangeable because having it on the team over another special attacker, or I guess it's just another special attacker, opens this team up to Dondozo a lot. From what I've heard, I'm looking at this team and I'm like, there's not that much counterplay to it. I haven't fought any Dondozos yet, which is kind of a miracle, but Joey Jokestar has, and he's lost to 2 of them. He beat 1, so it's not hopeless, right? But he beat 1. He also has a different version of the team than I do, and version of the team I think is lesser, which is cool that he's still doing really well with it. But yeah, having Ceruledge over a different kind of way of pressuring Corv does open this team up to Dondozo a bit. Also, I should probably make this thing adamant with how I'm using it, so I'm literally just going to change that right now. Change this to adamant. I don't think I've ever really needed to be jolly. But, yeah, anyway. Ceruledge has been putting in work. It's not been the most valuable member, though, and I think if you wanted to replace it, it's really weird to replace. And the one that I've actually been exploring the most, well, 2, I guess, because I forgot to put one here, is the possibility of Volcanion or Iron Moth. Both of these can carry specs. Volcanion, actually, if you really want to help the Dondozo matchup, you can run Power Herb Solar Beam. And because of Espeon, because of the fact that Espeon is dissuading them from clicking hazards at all, let alone just bouncing them back when they click it, a bootsless Volcanion and a bootsless Moth genuinely does function, because Espeon is a really threatening Pokemon on this team, and I could not be happier to say that. I really think the addition to Espeon is fucking cool. I'm sorry. But yeah, like if you wanted to replace Ceruledge, I think genuine options you could go for are Power Herb, Solar Beam, Volcanion with Steam Eruption and Fire Blast or whatever the fuck you want to do. Maybe Taunt as last move could be cool. And for Iron Moth, you could just run Choice Specs with U-Turn and Energy Ball. Sledge Wave. You know the deal. You could even run 4 attacks like with Discharge or something like that. I don't think it's totally necessary, but and this team like does kind of lack pivoting. Like it has no pivots, but I haven't been needing it. From my experience, I haven't really had a spot where I wanted to click a pivot move over just a really fucking strong attack from one of Ceruledge or Gambit or Golden or anything, right? Setting up with one of these two. No real room for a pivot move here. But yeah, that's the entire team. That's the Ceruledge. Obviously, you can replace with one of the other two, but this is the team I've been using and been finding pretty decent success with. I think I went 11-3 yesterday with it, which is pretty cool. I didn't really expect to do that well. And to be totally fair, I was getting a lot of cheesy kills on Gambits with Espeon, and I was winning a lot of close end games with Gambit, with my own Gambit. But generally, I think this team functions quite well, so I'm pretty happy about that. Terra Dragon on the Ceruledge, by the way. It used to be Fire. It also used to be Ghost. I ended up settling on Dragon for now because this team does have no resistance to water types. And I haven't really been terroring Ceruledge at all, but I guess if you wanted to in a pinch, it's better to have that resistance type than anything else. I don't think you're really going to need the damage output on a ledge. It does enough damage as it is. Anyways, it has been a fun team to use, and if you guys want to try it, I'll leave the Pokepaste in the description, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Not super high energy or anything really going on, but I hope you guys enjoyed me talking about this team, and I hope you guys, if you want to try this team, enjoy using it. Anyways, it's been fun. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm not sure if I'm going to do very many of these, but if I have some new ideas that end up turning into a team that is good, I will make more of these. So, it's been fun. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.